The call came at 9 p.m., the night before the biggest stunt sequence in the Wagon, and Chuck Roberson's brother was dead. Wait, because what John Wayne did in the next 12 hours would define loyalty in a way Hollywood had never seen, and the story almost stayed buried forever. September 1966. Durango, Mexico. The Wagon set had been running like clockwork for 6 weeks. John Wayne and Kirk Douglas were halfway through filming a Western about a gold heist, and tomorrow morning they were scheduled to shoot the most expensive action sequence of the entire production, a saloon brawl that would destroy half the set, cost over $80,000 to stage, and required precision timing from 20 stuntmen working at once. One mistake could kill someone. The production had already pushed boundaries. Kirk Douglas wanted a tougher Western, more violence, more realism. Director Burt Kennedy kept the cameras rolling longer than most directors would, letting the action play out in real time. No quick cuts to hide mistakes, no safety nets the audience could spot. This was going to be raw, brutal, the kind of sequence that would make people in theaters lean forward in their seats. And it all depended on tomorrow going perfectly. Chuck Roberson stood outside his hotel room, staring at the phone in his hand. 6'4", built like a barn door. The man they called Bad Chuck had been John Wayne's stunt double for 17 years. Director John Ford had given him that nickname back on Rio Grande. Said Roberson was so tough, he made the other stuntmen look soft. The name stuck. Hollywood respected Bad Chuck. When you saw Roberson's name on a call sheet, you knew the stunts would be done right. 17 years, 32 films. That's how long Roberson had been taking falls for Duke. Started in 1949 on The Fighting Kentuckian, same picture where Terry Wilson did his first Wayne stunt. Roberson had jumped horses off cliffs in Hondo, crashed through windows in The Searchers, rolled wagons in Rio Bravo, never missed a call time, never complained about a hard landing, never let Duke down. The voice on the other end of that phone line had just told him his younger brother was dead. Wait for this, because the decision Roberson made in the next 60 seconds would set everything in motion, and the friendship it revealed went deeper than anyone outside that set knew. Car accident in Los Angeles. 2 hours ago. Family needed him home. Now, Roberson walked to the production office, found the assistant director still working, told him he was leaving on the first flight, out in the morning. The AD went pale. Tomorrow's stunt sequence had been choreographed around Roberson's work, rehearsed for 3 weeks. Hal Needham himself was coordinating, and Needham didn't do simple. This was a fight scene that would end with Wayne's character crashing through a balcony railing, falling 12 feet onto a breakaway table, then rolling under a piano while Douglas threw dynamite. Every movement mapped, every angle calculated, every safety measure tested with Roberson's body. And Roberson was leaving in 8 hours. The AD asked the only question that mattered. Look, before we go further, you need to understand something about stunt work in 1966, and pay attention here, because what you're about to learn will make everything that follows hit differently. This wasn't like today. No computers calculating impact angles, no wire rigs controlled by robots, just men falling, and hoping the boxes they landed on were stacked right, hoping the timing was perfect, hoping their bodies held up. The year before, Wayne had insisted on doing his own stunts just months after lung cancer surgery, took his shirt off to prove he could handle it, and his stunt coordinator nearly had a heart attack seeing the scar that ran from his shoulder blade to his spine. But that was Duke. He didn't ask stuntmen to do anything he wouldn't do himself, and he didn't work with stuntmen he didn't trust completely. Chuck Roberson was the man he trusted most. Now Roberson had 6 hours to figure out who could fill his boots. He walked back to his room, started going through names in his head. Dean Smith was working on another picture. Lauren Janes was in Nevada. Most of the top guys were booked. He needed someone who knew Wayne's moves, someone who could match his walk, his stance, his weight distribution during a fall, someone Wayne would trust not to get himself killed. Then he remembered. Terry Wilson was on this picture, playing Sheriff Stryker. Small part, maybe 15 lines, but Wilson wasn't really an actor. Not yet. He'd been a stuntman. A damn good one. Had doubled Wayne back in 1949 on The Fighting Kentuckian. Spent years falling off horses and crashing through saloon doors before landing a regular role on Wagon Train as Bill Hawks. 8 seasons playing a wagon master. 8 seasons trying to convince Hollywood he was an actor now, not just a stuntman in a speaking part. Wilson's transition hadn't been easy. In 1957, when Wagon Train started, casting directors still saw him as Terry Wilson, the stuntman. He'd show up for auditions and producers would ask if he was there to coordinate the stunts. It took years of fighting for respect, years of proving he could deliver lines as well as he could take falls. His agent told him to stop mentioning his stunt background entirely, pretend it never happened, start fresh. But Wilson couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. Those years doubling Wayne and working with legends like Yakima Canute had taught him everything about timing, about presence, about how to command a scene. He wasn't ashamed of being a stuntman. He just didn't want to be only a stuntman. He wanted both doors open, wanted casting directors to see him as someone who could do it all. By 1966, he'd almost made it. Wagon Train had ended the year before after 8 seasons. Wilson had done guest spots on Bonanza, Gunsmoke, The Big Valley. Small roles, but roles. Character parts where he spoke more than 5 lines. Where his name in the credits said Terry Wilson, not Terry Wilson. Stunts. He was 44 years old. Had a wife. Had kids. Had finally built something that looked like a real acting career. And he knew exactly how fragile that was. Knew one wrong move could put him right back to being just another stuntman whose knees couldn't take another fall. Roberson knew this. Everyone knew this. Wilson had worked too hard to get out of stunt work to ever want to go back. But Roberson also knew Wilson would do anything for Duke. The two of them went way back. Wilson told a story once about that first picture in '49 when he'd put on Wayne's costume and reared a horse for a dangerous shot. Duke had watched him do it, watched him risk his neck, then spent the next 18 years making sure Wilson got work when work was scarce. That's the kind of man Duke was. He remembered who showed up. Roberson picked up the phone, called Wilson's room, explained the situation. His brother, the flight, tomorrow's stunt, needed help. Wilson didn't hesitate, said he'd do it, said Duke wouldn't even know he was there. Said to go be with family. Notice something here. Wilson didn't ask if it would be kept quiet, didn't negotiate terms, didn't mention that his insurance wouldn't cover stunt work anymore, that if he got hurt doing this, his actor's policy would be void, that one injury could end everything he'd built. Just said yes, because that's what you did when someone who'd been your friend for 17 years needed you. You showed up. Roberson caught a 6 a.m. flight to Los Angeles. By 8 a.m., the cast and crew were gathering on the saloon set. Wayne arrived in costume, looked around for Roberson, saw Terry Wilson instead, standing off to the side in Wayne's duplicate outfit, walked over, asked what was happening. Wilson told him, Roberson's brother. The accident, the flight home. Wayne nodded, asked Wilson if he was sure about this. Wilson said he was. Here's what you need to understand about this moment. John Wayne had every reason to shut down production, reschedule the stunt for when Roberson got back, take the hit on the budget, delay the film. But that would mean Roberson coming back to set carrying grief, having to work through it while everyone watched. Duke knew what that felt like, knew what it meant to lose family and have to keep working because the show must go on. So instead, he trusted Wilson, gave him the same nod he'd given Roberson 100 times before. All right, let's do this right. Hal Needham walked them through it one more time. Needham was already a legend at 35, had jumped cars, had coordinated stunts on dozens of pictures. He'd go on to direct Smokey and the Bandit. But in 1966, he was the guy directors called when they wanted something dangerous done right. And this stunt was dangerous. The balcony had been built to break away at 180 pounds of pressure. Wilson weighed 182. Close enough, Needham said. But close enough in stunt work meant the difference between a clean fall and a broken back. If Wilson hit the railing wrong, if his weight distributed unevenly, if the breakaway didn't trigger exactly when it should, he'd flip wrong and land on his head. 12-foot drop onto concrete covered by thin floorboards. The breakaway table would cushion some of it. Not all. Needham explained it step by step. Wilson would back into the railing, feel it give, let his weight commit. Arms out, body loose, hit the table flat. Wood would explode. Roll left, under the piano. Douglas would throw the prop dynamite. Pyrotechnics would blow. Smoke and dust would fill the saloon. Wilson would stay under the piano until Needham yelled clear. 4 takes, 4 times crashing through that balcony, 4 times hitting that table. They rehearsed it twice in slow motion. Then Needham called for cameras. Wayne delivered his lines, threw his punches. The fight spilled toward the balcony. Wilson moved into position. Wayne stepped back. Wilson crashed through the railing exactly as Roberson would have done. Hit the table. Wood exploded. Rolled under the piano. Douglas threw the dynamite charge. Pyrotechnics went off. The whole saloon shook. Needham yelled cut, ran over to Wilson, asked if he was okay. Wilson stood up, brushed splinters off his shoulders, said he was fine. Wayne walked over, looked him in the eye, said 3 words. Appreciate it, Terry. They shot the scene 4 more times from different angles. Wilson took the fall 4 more times. By noon, they had everything Needham needed. Wilson changed out of Wayne's costume, went back to being Sheriff Stryker, shot his own scenes that afternoon like nothing had happened. And that's where the story should have ended. A favor between friends. A crisis averted. Production stayed on schedule. Roberson came back a week later. Nobody outside the immediate crew even knew Wilson had stepped in. But then the publicity department found out. Remember, this was 1966. The War Wagon was a big-budget picture. 2 major stars. Universal Studios had money riding on it. And the publicity guys were always looking for stories they could feed to the trades. Human interest pieces. Behind-the-scenes drama. Anything that would get the film's name in Variety or The Hollywood Reporter. When they heard that John Wayne's former stuntman had secretly returned to double him during an emergency, saving production from a costly delay, they saw gold. This was exactly the kind of story that would make the gossip columns. Terry Wilson, the actor from Wagon Train, stepping back into his old role as a stuntman to help out the Duke. Heartwarming, heroic, perfect publicity. They drafted the press release, planned the whole campaign. Photos of Wilson in Wayne's costume, interview quotes about loyalty and friendship, maybe even get Wilson on a talk show to tell the story. The publicity men were going to play it up big, really big. But every story about the War Wagon had to be cleared through John Wayne's production company. Duke had approval over what got released. Standard practice. So the publicity team sent the press release to his office. Wayne read it in his trailer between setups. Afternoon light coming through the window. Script pages stacked on the table. Coffee gone cold in a tin cup. He read the press release twice, put it down, picked up a pen, wrote 2 words across the top. No, kill it. Then he walked out to find the publicity men. The conversation didn't last long. The publicity team tried to explain. This was good press. Free publicity. Made Wayne look loyal. Made Wilson look heroic. Made Universal look like a studio that took care of its people. Win-win-win. Why would Duke shut it down? Wayne didn't raise his voice. didn't need to. Just explained it once. Terry Wilson worked too hard at being an actor. Too hard to let one press release put him back in the stuntman column. Wilson had spent 8 years on Wagon Train building something. 8 years proving he could carry a scene. 8 years earning respect as Bill Hawks, the wagon master who kept the train moving when trouble came. That wasn't easy. Wasn't handed to him. He'd fought for every line, every scene, every casting director, who finally stopped seeing him as just a stuntman. And Wayne wasn't going to let one story undo all of that work. He told the publicity men straight. Wilson did the stunt work as a personal favor to a friend. That friend wasn't going to turn around and use it for publicity. Wasn't going to put Wilson's name in a press release that would make every casting director in Hollywood remember him as the stuntman, not the actor. Wilson was an actor now. That's how Wayne saw him. That's how the industry needed to see him. And if this story got out, it would stick to Wilson for the rest of his career. Every audition, every callback, every role, they'd remember the guy who stepped in to double Duke, not the guy who could deliver a performance. Wayne made it simple for them. The story stays buried. Wilson stays an actor. That's how it's going to be. One of the publicity men asked if Wilson knew Wayne was killing the story. Wayne said he didn't need to know. Wilson had done him a favor. This was Wayne returning it. That's what friends did. Protected each other. Even when it cost something. Even when nobody would ever know. And it did cost something. Universal had already calculated the PR value. A story like this could add $300,000 to opening weekend. Maybe more. Wayne walked away from that number without blinking. The room went quiet. The publicity men nodded. Understood. The press release got filed away. Never sent to Variety. Never sent to the Hollywood Reporter. Never sent anywhere. The press release got buried. The story stayed quiet. Production wrapped 2 weeks later, right on schedule. The War Wagon came out in May 1967, made over $7 million at the box office. The saloon brawl scene got praised in reviews. Nobody mentioned that it wasn't Chuck Roberson taking that fall. Nobody knew Terry Wilson had stepped in. The secret stayed on set. Listen carefully to this next part, because it's what makes the whole thing matter. Terry Wilson kept that secret for decades. Never told reporters, never bragged about it, never tried to use it for his own publicity. He knew why Wayne had killed the story, and he respected it. He stayed quiet. Years passed. Wilson kept working. Landed guest spots on Marcus Welby, Maryland. Showed up in episodes of Emergency, and Adam 12, played sheriffs and deputies. Never became a household name outside of Wagon Train fans. But he worked steady, paid his bills, raised his family, and every time he walked onto a set, casting directors saw him as an actor, not a stuntman, an actor. That's what Wayne had protected. That's what Wayne had given him. The only time Wilson ever talked about it was years later, to his fan club. Small group of people who loved Wagon Train and wrote him letters asking about his friendship with Duke. He told them the story once. Just once. Told it quietly, like he was sharing something sacred. And even then, in 1995, with Wagon Train 30 years behind him, his hands shook while he wrote it down, still worried someone might use it against him, still protective of what Duke had protected, said Wayne had protected him, said he'd never forget it, said that's the kind of man Duke was, loyal to people who were loyal to him, loyal in ways that cost him something, loyal when nobody was watching. Wilson wrote it down in his notes. His biographer found them later, after Wilson died in 1999. The handwritten pages were faded but clear. Wilson had written, Duke didn't have to do that. Could have gotten good publicity out of it. Could have looked like a hero, but he knew what it cost me to stop being just a stuntman. Knew how hard I'd worked to be seen as something more. And he wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. That's friendship. That's loyalty. That's John Wayne. The biographer asked Wilson's family if they'd known the story. They said Wilson had told them, but asked them to keep it quiet until after he died. Said he didn't want it getting out while he was still working, still auditioning, still trying to be an actor. Even in his 70s, he protected what Wayne had protected. Think about that for a minute. John Wayne turned down good publicity, free press, a heartwarming story that would have made him look great. Turned it down because it would have hurt a friend's career, because protecting Terry Wilson's future mattered more than promoting his own film. That's a choice most people wouldn't make. That's a choice most people wouldn't even think to make. But Wayne made it. Without hesitation, without needing credit for it. Made it, and moved on. That's what loyalty looked like to John Wayne. Not grand gestures, not public displays, just quiet decisions that put other people first. Decisions that cost him something. Decisions nobody would ever know about unless you dug deep enough to find them. The War Wagon played in theaters all summer. Critics called it a solid Western. Audiences loved the action sequences. The saloon brawl scene became one of the most talked about moments in the film. Chuck Roberson came back from his brother's funeral and finished the picture. Went on to double Wayne in a dozen more films. Never talked publicly about the night his brother died, and Terry Wilson saved production. Never needed to. The people who mattered knew what happened, knew what it meant. That was enough. Terry Wilson kept acting, did guest spots on television, showed up in westerns, played lawmen and ranch hands. Never became a major star, but he worked steady, earned respect, got remembered as Bill Hawks from Wagon Train, not as a stuntman, which is exactly what he wanted, exactly what Wayne had protected. And Wayne, he kept making movies, kept working with stuntmen who'd become friends, kept making decisions that put loyalty over profit, over and over, year after year, until his last film in 1976. He knew what mattered, who mattered, and he never forgot it. This story stayed buried for 30 years because John Wayne wanted it that way, not because it made him look bad, but because it might have hurt someone he cared about. That's the measure of a man. Not what he does when cameras are rolling, but what he refuses to do when nobody's watching. The stories he kills, the credit he never takes, the friend he protects without needing thanks. If you enjoyed spending this time here, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing. A simple like also helps more than you'd think. And if you want to hear about the time Wayne walked onto a set at 5 a.m. and found something that made him shut down production for an entire day, tell me in the comments.